Now that you've seen how to add an item to an array list, let's learn how to delete an item. Once again, remember the array list is like an accordion array where you can grow and shrink as you need it. So I'm going to create a brand new project, and I'm going to call this project Array List String Delete. Love those big names. And in this program, the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and create a brand new array list. Remember, once again, the way you create array list is you specify the word array list, and then you say less than sign, and then you specify the data type. If you wanted numbers, you do an int. If you wanted decimal numbers, you do a double. In this case, we're going to go ahead and do a string, so I'll specify string. We give it a name. I'm going to call it AL Teams, and then we actually create the list by saying new, and then array list less than sign greater than sign, and then don't forget to put the parentheses because you have to call a constructor to create a new object. It's telling us that it doesn't really know who array list is, so we put our cursor on the little symbol, click on it, and we add the import right here, the java.util array list, so that we can now work with the array list. I'm going to get rid of some of these comments that were created by NetBeans to clean it up some. I'm going to go ahead and create a variable that's going to act as a count, and I'm also going to create a scanner variable. I'll call my variable OSScan, and then I'll need to make sure that I import the scanner class so I can work with that. And then what I want to do is I want to create a loop that will run for a certain number of times. And for every time we create, every time we execute that loop, we can ask the user to enter in a name. We will add an item, and then later on we're going to delete one. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and prompt the user to enter in the number of teams. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create another variable, scanner OIScan equals new scanner system in. This variable will be used to get integer data, and this variable will be used to get string data. And so I will now say down here, iCount equals OIScan dot next int. So I'll prompt the user for how many teams they want to enter. Then I will go and get that value from the keyboard and store it to OICount. Now that I have that value, I can now do a for loop that will allow me to stay in that loop and enter in many teams. I'll do a for loop, and I'm going to go ahead and just create the variable that will be local to the for loop, and I'll call it iTeamCount. I'll start it at 0, and I'll say as long as iTeamCount is less than iCount, I want to stay in the loop, and then I will increment iTeamCount. And in this loop, I'll say enter the team name. And then I'll go and get that team name. sname equals OSScan.next line. Now that I have that name, I can go back to my array list and say ArrayList.add sname. By the time I'm done, ALTeams.add sname, this will keep adding every name I type in from the keyboard. Now if you wanted to, you could actually take this line and put it right inside of there. I sort of like to break mine up because it makes it a little more readable. By the time we're done, we will have loaded up that array list with all the names from the keyboard. I can go ahead and prove that those names are there by running another for loop. Start it at 0, and we'll say as long as iTeamCount is less than the ALTeams.size. Remember, size returns the size of the array list. Then we'll increment iTeamCount. And within that loop, I'll just print off ALTeams.get, and then we'll use iTeamCount as the counter. I can go ahead and run that. And how many teams do I want to enter? Let's enter in 2 teams. Enter the team name. BYU, enter. Enter the team name. WSU, enter. And then it prints off BYU and WSU. I'll close that output window. Now that we have the team names loaded, I'm going to show you how to delete an item from that list. First thing I'm going to do is prompt them by saying, which team would you like to delete? And then I'm going to go get that team name. I'm going to reuse some of my variables. I'm going to reuse sname and do another osscan.next line. This will go and get data from the keyboard, and whatever I type in will be stored to sname. Now what I can do with that sname is actually search within that array list to see if it's there. Here's how you do it. I'm going to go ahead and declare a variable. I have my variable iCount up top. I'm going to reuse that variable and just say iCount is equal to the array list name dot, and look at all these methods we have. These are all methods for array list. One of the methods is called index of, and it allows you to search for an item in that list, and it will, if it finds something, it will look for the first occurrence of the value you're searching for, and it will return the position of where it found it. If it didn't find it, it's going to return a -1, meaning it's not in that list. So we're going to go ahead and use index of, and I'm going to use the name that they typed in to see if whatever they typed in from the keyboard is actually in that list. Now remember, if it didn't find it, then iCount is going to be -1. So I could now say if iCount is greater than or equal to 0, because you remember array lists start at 0 just like arrays, then I'm going to go ahead and print out that I found the team, and I'm going to concatenate the teams.get iCount. And don't forget that there's a semicolon on the end of that line. So I just concatenated the string, I found the team, notice I left a space there, plus, and then the item that I found. Remember that iCount says, go search the array list, searching it using whatever they typed in from the keyboard. If I found it, return the position. If it returns 0, that means it's in the first position. -1 means I didn't find it. A 1 says I found it in the second position. In fact, I could even add an else statement to this that says I did not find the team. Let's go ahead and run that. I'll pull that back so you can see all the code. Run that, and we'll type in 3 teams, WSU, BYU, USU. Let's go search for USU, and it says I found the team USU. If I ran that again, and let's just do 2 teams, and I'll type in BYU and WSU, and if I try to search for the team USU, it says you didn't find the team. Now let's take one more look at the code, because we're saying right now, which one would you like to delete? I'm going to close the output window. I'm not deleting any of the teams. Right now I'm just displaying them. But I could delete them, and all you have to do is say the array list name dot remove, and then the position of which item you want to remove. Remember right here I said go display the value, and this would say since I found it, let's go ahead and remove the value. This statement removes items based upon the position that you tell it to remove. This is why we have what we call the accordion array, where you can add items to the array list to grow it, and you can remove items from the array list to shrink it.